However, we are also simultaneously shooting for our YouTube show. So you are part of the first audience since we closed down from COVID. We used to always do these classes in person. We have since done them virtual. So just so you know as well, sometimes I'm talking to our YouTube audience. You will say, what are you doing? You sound strange. I do sound strange, but just so you know, we are also shooting for our YouTube class. To give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look of how we put these classes together. So quickly, we'll go through introductions. Like Aaron mentioned, my name is Jeremy. I've been with Princess Margaret for over 13 years. Pretty comfortable in the basement. They don't let me out. To stay dry. Yeah, I heard it was raining out there. Yeah, we're gonna give you a little taste of what we do. We've been running this program for that same time of 13 years. We offer varying versions of these classes, some virtual, some in person, some hybrid now, and they're all focused on eating and cooking for cancer survivorship and some side effect management as well.
Yeah, and we bring in the evidence-based part of it too, right? So I've been a dietitian a little longer than Jeremy's been a chef, over 30 years. What I really love about doing these cooking and nutrition demos is that we can take that nutrition information that we're always sharing with patients and put it into something practical. Because many times if you're just seeing the dietitian, sometimes it's like, great, thanks for all that, but how do I do it? I don't have the skills in the kitchen and I'm afraid. There's so much information out there. I think I did a Google search just this morning and about 1,460,000,000 results came up in less than a minute. So, and usually there's a grain of truth within the misinformation. And if you have cancer, it's even harder because you feel guilt that maybe you gave yourself that cancer or you think you're eating the wrong foods. So what I love is that we can work together to share the evidence-based nutrition, but also share the food that you can make from that. Okay. So shall we just get into?
Yes, maybe quick housekeeping. If you are in person, as you are, ask questions at any time. We'll address them as we go, so don't worry about interrupting. If you're watching at home, right now, live, can they interact with you, Aaron?
Yeah, they can raise their hand, they can unmute, ask questions, they can put questions in the chat.
Virtually, if you're watching, wonderful, ask questions, you will. If you're on YouTube, this will be 2 days later, but if you're on YouTube, you can ask questions in the chat and we will answer that way as well. Let's get started.
Let's get started. Okay. So we are going to start with the cancer prevention guidelines from the American Institute for Cancer Research, also the World Cancer Research Fund. That is really our go-to for information on the latest research on food, nutrition, physical activity, lifestyle, and it's what we promote with our clients as well. It says prevention, but it's also cancer risk reduction for cancer survivors. The only difference there is that sometimes when you have cancer and go through treatment, there may be some different restrictions around the food you can eat. Like one that comes to mind is fiber. So if you have a risk of bowel blockage, then you need to lower your fiber. And a lot of our risk reduction information is about increasing fiber. Anyway, enough about that for now. Our first recipe that we want to get into is an orange fennel salad with tofu feta. Yep, you heard me correctly, tofu feta. So this recipe aligns with the recommendation to make whole grains, vegetables, fruits, legumes, which is also like your dried peas and beans and lentils, a major part of your usual daily intake. And what the cancer authorities have found is that a plant-forward way of eating or a plant-based way of eating is more helpful and protective for us. It can help reduce risk of not only certain cancers like colorectal cancer, but also is important for heart health and blood sugar maintenance. And usually a plant-forward diet is rich in fiber, mentioned that already before, right? We need about 25 to 30 grams per day. Most of us in Canada are probably only getting half of that. We're not going to put you on the spot, and ask you how much you're taking. Contains phytonutrients, fancy way of saying nutrients in plants. And they have various anti-cancer properties that they're finding in the research, and including about 5 servings of non-starchy vegetables and fruit. So Jeremy worked his magic. This recipe is a plant-forward recipe, non-starchy and fruit. We have oranges and the fennel, tofu and lentils, plant-based protein, and they all contain fiber.
Awesome. So from a cooking perspective, like Daniela mentioned, try to highlight that nutrition information, more practical sense. Like how does it look like on the plate when we're in the kitchen, when we're eating out at a restaurant, whatever it may be. But also trying to maybe introduce some new ingredients in a more creative way for people. Tofu can be intimidating for a lot of people, especially when you're trying to introduce more plant-based proteins. Who eats tofu in this group?
We've got a few, pretty
It's
good.
changing, it's changing. So I remember, yeah, I think it's starting to change a bit. So it's just great. We're gonna be doing something a little bit different with tofu. You eat tofu, probably know, doesn't really taste like much. So you have to add some, flavor to it. We're going to be treating it. This is something that I learned from a colleague I worked with from South America, who would take tofu and treat it like feta cheese. So feta cheese, if you've ever had feta cheese before, it's essentially a cottage cheese. In its natural state, it's not very flavorful, and then it's brine. They add a brine to it, which makes it like really salty, tangy, and very flavorful. So we're going to do the same thing with tofu. We're going to treat it like feta cheese by brining it in a jar. So what I like to use for this is firm or extra firm tofu. Block, try to press out as much water as you can. Towel, doesn't matter, you don't get it all out, but try to get as much out as you can. The more water you get out, it leaves more room for more of that brine, more of that flavor to come. Okay. For the brine, what I like to do is 1 part hot water, 1 part vinegar. You can use anything, white wine, white vinegar, rice wine vinegar, whatever you want, and about a tablespoon of salt. Okay. I've already dissolved salt in this part of the vinegar in advance, but it's easier if you do it in warm water. About a tablespoon of salt, stir it through, and you're good to go. For the tofu, I'll cut it into like big chunks. I'm doing like a very small version of this, but I usually have like a bigger mason jar to fit the whole block. And what I can do is just break it up into like feta cheese, size blocks, or you can even leave it full. I just sort of like it a little more ridged, so I'll break it up into uneven, ununiform pieces, press it into your jar. And again, this is a different preparation. If you like feta cheese, you can skip this whole step altogether and just add feta cheese. We're just trying to introduce, maybe more unique ingredients for some people with a different preparation. And so that's why we're doing this. So we've got our tofu in here, and then we're going to add our 1 part of the vinegar, part the water. It doesn't have to boil, just bring it up to a simmer. It's good to go. My 1-to-1 is a little off, but measure at home. And then that's it. Jar lid on top, and I like to turn it upside down, and then you can keep this in the fridge for up to the week, and then you can add it to salads, whatever you want. Yes.
Would you say that this alternative is like substantially healthier than feta cheese?
That's a good question.
Interesting question.
Protein wise,
Protein-wise, it's probably about the same. I mean,
Yeah.
when I think of feta, I think about it being very high in salt. So with this, it's going to be a lot lower in salt. So that is one different advantage of that.
Yeah.
Probably get a little bit of fiber from this too, that you wouldn't from feta cheese, but part of what we like to talk about too is having everything in moderation, so.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you an option if you have a dietary restriction that limits you from having cheese. So it's just an alternative there.
Plus, probably lots of lowering fat, yeah.
Yeah. So you can put this in the fridge, the longer it sits, the more flavorful it will get. Got one here, a fridge under here, by the way, so you can all the secrets. That is just a plain version. You can also add different aromatics to it. If you want to go all chefy, jazz it up a little bit. I have some like orange peel in here and some chilies and some oregano. So now you're adding even more flavor, right? So you can just do the basic 1-to-1, or you can bump it up a little bit and make it taste really cool. You put this on the table and people will be like, what is going on, right? Texturally, it is pretty similar to feta. It's not gonna have as much of like a bounce or a sweep to it, but it's pretty similar. And then flavor wise, it's going to taste as good as the brine that you make. So it's a great way to inject a little bit more flavor. And that's fantastic on like salads, as a side, you can throw it into anything. Really good. All right. That's the first part, that's the hard part. The rest, we're gonna make this really nice little salad to add it to. It is summertime, no surprise. I like something salad-wise, a little bit more refreshing, a little bit more substantial. Not like a green leaf type of salad, personally, even though I enjoy it, but I do like something with a little more texture. So
Learning something new.
there you go. We're using, can anyone guess what this vegetable is? Test our group. Yes, it is a fennel. Yes, well done. 20 points for you. Fennel. So this is half a fennel. The bulb, you can imagine the rest of it. So let's put a little less than half. And then these stalks that shoot off the top, it grows like this. So you will see that it's segmented, similar to an onion, which is going to make it a little bit easier to dice, which I'm going to show you in a second. Also, the fibers grow from the ground up to the top. So anytime you are using fennel, and if you've never used it before, texturally, like celery, very similar to celery. Flavor-wise, you're thinking about like anise flavor, or like black licorice flavor. I love it. It's not maybe for everyone, but it is really nice, really refreshing. But when you cut fennel, you want to sort of cut it against that fiber, similar to celery. If you've ever like eaten an entire stick of celery, you just have like strings hanging out of your mouth, it'll do the same thing. So you want to cut against that grain to make a little bit more of a tender bite.
Do you have a little extra that I can kind of give a piece for them to smell, not to eat, just to smell?
It's not poisonous.
No, I say not to eat
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
oh, you put it in a plate, you have your hands all over it, so
Yeah.
I didn't want it to go from one
No.
person to another in that way.
So
Otherwise, yeah, it's not poisonous.
yeah, you can take a nibble and pass it along. So like an onion, it has layers to it, which is going to make it very easy to cut, or a lot easier to cut, a lot safer to cut. A big part of our program too is trying to make the cooking process more accessible for patients, especially if they are dealing with side effects. Like fatigue is a big one that we do see. Knife handling, knife skills, just cooking confidence in general can be a little lower. So trying to make the cooking process a little safer is, one of our goals as well. So has anyone seen any like a how to cut an onion video? That's like the most typical video. Okay, very typical in those videos. You will see this cross cut action. So you're cutting the onion in half, you're putting it down, and you're starting to slice and push that knife towards your hand. And if you have resistance and now you're fighting against resistance, that's not going to be very safe, is it? Especially if you're not super comfortable with a knife. Anytime you're pushing a knife towards your hand, it's recipe for disaster. So because it's already layered, like an onion is already layered, you don't have to push it across. Unless you work in a Michelin-star restaurant, you do not need perfect dices. Your chef is not going to come around to measure each individual piece. All I need is a uniform piece. So I'm going to make lateral cuts, and then I will go across horizontally, across those lateral cuts to get my dice, right? You're going to do the same thing with an onion because it's layered already. It already creates that dice for you. It makes it easier, it makes it safer, and it makes quick work with our piece of fennel. The root part, chunky root part here, we don't eat, it's just too tough, too fibers. So we're slicing this up. Fennel, what would you like about fennel?
Yeah, well, first the aroma, I
Mm.
mean, just dicing it up here, I can smell that aroma. How many of you like that aroma? Cause I know there's those that like, okay, yeah, and then some not so, yeah, it's okay, okay. So what we like about fennel is that it's a non-starchy vegetable. Non-starchy vegetable really means that there's less starch in it, right? And it won't, and less carbohydrate. So fennel is a non-starchy vegetable. Carrots are non-starchy, celery that he mentioned, tomatoes, whereas a starchy vegetable is like potatoes and sweet potatoes, green peas. They have more carbohydrate in it, and that turns into sugar. Both are good, but with the cancer prevention recommendations, we want to really increase our non-starchy vegetables. And the fennel here, if we look at 1 cup, it actually provides about 3 grams of fiber per cup. And we want to up that. Remember, we want, for women, we want to get about 25 grams per day. Men, we want to get about 38 grams per day. So this gets us closer to that. It also, I know I can keep going.
Keep going. Keep going.
It also contains antioxidants. How many of you have heard that term, antioxidants? Okay. Anyone give a hazard as to what we mean by antioxidants? No? Put you on the spot a little bit? Yes.
Compound that reduces oxidation in a cell.
Yes, correct. So it reduces oxidation. Oxidation creates free radicals, unstable molecules that can accelerate aging and can also be connected with different conditions, right? Development of cancer, chronic conditions. So having an antioxidant in your food is a great way to help support the anti-cancer properties. And the ones in this, so vitamin C acts as a vitamin and as an antioxidant. Then there's another one that I like to say called limonene. You'd think that would be in lemons. It probably is in lemons too, but it's in this as well. I'll stop it.
The orange?
The
The
fennel,
fennel.
the orange probably has limonene too, because it's a citrus fruit.
I just learned about lemonade. I like that.
Don't you, I like saying it, limonene. I
So-
think limoncello, but
Yeah, yeah.
not
No,
limoncello.
no antioxidants. All right, so we have our fennel diced with chock full of those antioxidants. A little bit of onion as well. This is where, again, a lot of our recipes, when we do develop them, they're meant to be very easily broken down and you can substitute the ingredients. We try not to make them too rigid. I don't cook that way anyways. I try to be as fluid as I can, use what you have. And outside of like some of the maybe baked goods, these you can sort of follow the general structure, but make any changes, make any substitutions. So fennel, onion, and then orange is next. With the orange, I'm going to show you a technique that is sort of a middle point in between just peeling an orange by hand and doing something in restaurants where we call supreme. Have anyone heard of supreme before? No, okay, it's all right. Supreme is where you're individually taking out each little segment of orange, so it's beautiful and it's gorgeous and it takes forever. It's time consuming and no one's going to do it at home. So I'm going to show you sort of the midpoint so that we get a really nice sort of piece and bite of orange, but it doesn't take too much time. First thing, if you have a clementine or mandarin, you just peel it, cut it up and throw it in. That's sort of the easiest way. Second is if you have like a navel orange like this, top, bottom, off. Any round vegetable that you are cutting, that is usually the rule off the top. Create a flat surface so that it does not roll around, okay? And then with that orange, I can then follow the curve of it with my knife. You don't need a large knife for this. Paring knife actually works a little bit better. We're gonna remove the peel, trying not to take off too much of the fruit, because it's that sort of that white membrane, the outside of the orange, that doesn't make the bite so pleasant. But we deal with it if we're just eating an orange as a snack, but it's not super nice. All right, so
You can do that with a paring knife too, right?
definitely easier with a paring knife. Yeah, I just did not want to dirty another knife, but definitely do it with a paring knife. And then we're going to cut it in half. And then half again. So we have our quarters and we're exposing that sort of core piece in the middle. Also not so pleasant. And if there are any seeds, this one does have. We can sort of knock them out that way. We've got this little piece. This is, I mean, obviously we live in an era where you can get produce and fruits any time of the year, no matter where it is, out of season, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, maybe for some things, but
Yeah.
can anyone guess when the season for citrus, like oranges, is? What would you think? Yes, in the back.
The fall.
Just at the end, tail end of the fall, but the winter. The winter is the season, so you wouldn't think, because it seems like a summer fruit. I would probably enjoy them, lemons, limes, oranges in summer, but they are the best during that like tail end of the fall across winter. It's about like October to March, like that's like the peak for citrus. So that is the time for the nerd out on citrus and nerd out on citrus during the winter. All right, so it's nice and clean now, so now I can dice up orange. This combination of orange and fennel, you would see traditionally in southern Italy, I mean other parts for sure of the world, but southern Italy is a very common salad with orange and fennel, sometimes onion, but very, very simple. But even just these three ingredients together create this wonderful harmony of flavors, of acidity, textures, where like after this, it's good. Like this is delicious, fantastic, but we want to introduce that protein piece
You want that protein,
as
yeah.
well. So tofu is going to be one, tofu feta. The other is one of our favorites, dried lentils. They're not dried lentils, these are cooked lentils, they're canned lentils, drained and rinsed, really easy. Again, like I mentioned, accessibility is a big part of our program, especially when it comes to budget accessibility and setting up your pantry with some of those really easy to go, budget friendly ingredients can be very helpful, especially if they're nutrient packed, like our friend here, the lentil. Drained and rinsed, that's going to go in. This version, by the way, I came across recently, Sprague Cannery. It is fantastic. Yes, it's Canadian, and the lentils are gorgeous. Sorry, we're gonna nerd out. Lentils are gorgeous from time to time.
And of course, I'm looking at the ingredients,
Right.
right? So yeah, so that's great. Full black lentils, then water, then sea salt. So yeah, excellent.
Awesome.
So
So,
I guess you don't need the can.
no, and then lentils, maybe, I don't know if you wanna.
Talk a
one
little
of my
bit about-
favorites, power couples.
Yeah, oh, the
Or,
favorite
yeah.
power couples. Yes, yes, we love our power couples. So when it comes to iron, there's heme iron, non-heme iron. Heme iron basically means iron, the mineral that you can find in animal products. And then non-heme iron means the iron that you find in plant foods. The one you find in plant foods, like the lentils here, is not absorbed as easily by the body. But if you pair it with a food rich in vitamin C, it increases the absorption of iron from the lentils by 50%. So that's why we call it a power couple. So trying to get your plant sources of iron, if you're having a food like the lentils, or even the tofu has some iron in it, or even like breakfast cereals that have some iron in it, try to match that up with a food that has vitamin C to improve the absorption of the iron.
Love that. All right, I'm gonna finish off the salad. Do you have anything else?
Yeah. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about the tofu, just because we're talking to an audience that of cancer survivors or caregivers for people who can't with cancer. So there's been this taboo around tofu. I don't know if you've heard about it with soy, about, oh, don't eat soy, it increases cancer. Phytoestrogens they talk about. Phytoestrogens, when you put the word pH, the root PHYTO in front of a word, it just means that it comes from plant. So phytoestrogen, there's an estrogen looking component in tofu, it's isoflavone. And because it looks like the hormone estrogen, there was this fear that, oh my God, it must act like the hormone estrogen. but it does not. They've done so many more studies on it. And they find that the action from the phytoestrogen is quite weak. And in fact, the health benefits of having some tofu, I kind of put that to having soy or having tofu in the diet outweighs the risk. And so if you are a cancer survivor of breast cancer, we say 2 to 3 servings today is actually okay. What we promote possibly avoiding is concentrated sources of soy. So a soy protein isolate. But having tofu, having soy beverages, having, what else can we make? Oh, edamame, it's okay, go for it. That's all.
Love it. Thank you. Sofu is maybe the remarkable.
Sofu.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a sofu?
No, I don't know. Let's
Okay.
do it. Why
Let's
not?
do it, okay.
Business idea.
That was partially.
Copywriting this right now. So we're gonna finish it off with our tofu feta. So again, this is just the straight up 1-to-1 ratio, no other aromatics in here. You can see it looks pretty much the same, but you can smell it when you try it, you'll, but it has like a brininess to it. Very similar to what you get.
But
So-
mild, it's not too strong.
Not too strong,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna get that like really salty taste that you would get from feta. So it's a little milder than that. But again, you can adjust your taste. So I'm gonna pour that in, and then if you want some fresh herbs, you can throw some mint on there. I did add a little bit of olive oil, salt. And mix this up. Now you have a little bit of acidity from the orange, but it's very mild, the acidity, so just to balance it out, we can add a little bit of vinegar.
It looks beautiful, visually appealing, right? So it's appealing to our eye hunger, appealing to our nose hunger. Is your mouth watering? The mouth's watering.
Tofu feta doesn't get you up.
Yeah, no, they said.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no. We got a tofu forward
Yeah, I
crab.
do, I forget that. Yeah, and that's it. So we have, given a nice little mix, but you have all these amazing little textures, tofu, the orange, the crunch of the fennel, the lentils in there, and then the fresh mint, I think just really sort of elevates it a little bit, but something different for like a nice summer salad. There's our first recipe, orange fennel salad with tofu. Yeah. Any questions?
No.
No. Yes.
You mentioned use what you have in your fridge kind of thing, accessibility. Is there any kind of typical salad ingredients that might be contraindicated for cancer survivors or cancer treatment? Yeah,
Grapefruit is one, like, it's not for all types of people with cancer undergoing treatment, but grapefruit can interact with a lot of medications. So that might be one to really focus on. And then we love using turmeric, and turmeric is great as a food source. So it interacts with a chemo agent called doxorubicin, but it's really more in supplement form. So turmeric is okay to have in the pantry. So it's good to have maybe a conversation with your healthcare team, because depending on the type of cancer you have, the type of treatment you're receiving, add to that, if you have any other medical conditions, maybe there are certain foods to avoid. But I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think the most important key is when you're going into supplementation. So if you have a cupboard full of, mega doses of vitamin C or mega doses of ginkgo biloba or ginger, that's where the concern is, in the mega dosing. But from a food perspective, it's minor. The other one, with the grapefruit, that's more specific to a certain type of treatment. What falls into that same family are Seville oranges and star fruit. But again, talk with your healthcare team to see if there's anything specific to avoid. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in regards to, as you mentioned, supplementation, are there any concerns carcinogenically with supplementing with whey protein or vegan protein?
Excellent question. So with the protein supplementation, there are not contraindications, but what I would want you to do is look at that label, right? Make sure it's a sole source of that whey protein isolate or vegan protein. And the other thing, when you're looking at supplementation, look at the DIN number, right? The drug identification number, or the NPN, I think it is, the nutrition product number, to make sure that the purity of the product is there. So that's what to look at for supplementation. We get more concerned about the vitamin and mineral supplementation versus the protein. There are some good proteins. Good, what, you guys are good, great questions.
The only thing maybe I'll add from more of a cooking perspective is anytime that you are dealing with someone who has a compromised immune system, food safety is always important, especially if you're dealing with a population that does have a compromised immune system. You have to be aware of certain ingredients, like maybe raw fish, maybe
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
like
no
sushi,
sushi, yeah,
like blue cheeses or vein cheeses.
good point, yeah, so foods, cheeses made with mold.
Mold,
We have to
yes.
avoid, or we call them the fresh cheeses.
Yeah.
Sushi,
And then
yeah.
your cooking practices themselves. They knowing what the danger zone is, knowing that you're cooking foods to a proper, safe internal temperature. We actually did a collaboration with Health Canada recently. You can find they did a wonderful presentation on food safety for people with compromised immune system, and then we did some recipes to pair with that. We're a resource now on the Health Canada website through that collaboration, which is fantastic. Out of that, but they have some wonderful resources specific to food safety if you are looking for more information. And for us, we generally direct, I guess, our patients towards.
Yeah, so we have our own handout through University Health Network on food safety for weakened immune systems. We also have a series of little nano videos if you want to check those out. And I think what I'll add to what Jeremy said about food safety is also looking at best before dates, right? So making sure that if you're going to put anything in your pantry, that you're going to check out the best before dates. You don't just stock it up and leave it there. And also refrigerate foods properly. So those are the big things. Yeah.
All right, jumping into recipe number 2.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I'll do the,
get it up.
yeah, I've got my green paper here with the intro. So the sesame salmon burgers, they align with the recommendation to eat no more than moderate amounts of red meat and eat little, if any, processed meats. So what the heck do we mean by don't eat more than a moderate amount of red meat? Well, red meat, when we're talking about red meat, we're talking about beef, pork, lamb, game meats. And a moderate intake would be about 3 portions per week of a total of 350 to 500 grams per week. So if we think of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards as 100 grams, that gives you an idea of how much you can have per week. And we don't eliminate it completely. So sometimes people think that, oh, if I cut back completely, that's even better. But the recommendation is that you can still have a little bit of red meat because it does have good nutrition for you. It does have vitamin B12 and iron and zinc. It's an excellent source of protein. The processed meats, on the other hand, is one that we encourage people to avoid completely because there is strong evidence that there is a connection with cancer occurrence. But what we're doing today is substituting with fish. And for heart health, it's recommended to have fish about 2 to 3 times per week. And for us, it's just a great way to cut back on our red meat, but still keep our protein intake high. It's good for muscle building, right? But if you have cancer, you might be losing muscle very quickly. So we want to make sure that you're getting adequate protein to maintain that. And also helps your immune system. Okay.
Beautiful, awesome. So yes, we're going to be making some salmon burgers. These are, for me, anytime I can make something in a batch, and especially something that freezes really well, I'm all for it. So for something like this, salmon burgers, protein, nice, good source of protein here. I can make a big batch of them, I can freeze them, and then warm them up as I need. for me, it's a win. About the fish itself, now it's completely up to you. You have, beautiful piece of fish, use it, cook it, and we're gonna add it to the patties. For something a little bit more accessible, especially if from a budget perspective, but also from just a cooking confidence perspective, not everyone is comfortable cooking fish. Canned salmon is a great way to go. Another wonderful pantry staple to have that canned fish, right? So easy to find, drain and rinse. It's already cooked, so you can either add this to salads if you want, or you're making it into these little burgers, these little patties, but it makes it really easy for you as well. So you have options here if you want to be fresh or the canned. This is sockeye salmon. I would suggest, unless you like it with the bones and the skin, make sure on the label it says boneless and skinless. Especially if you're making patties, you're gonna pick that out. It's just a bit of a pain. So look for, it should say boneless and skinless on it. And it's, if you're familiar with a can of tuna, it's pretty much like that. So we're adding it to our bowl. And again, if I was doing this with fresh, I could use it minced fresh to make the patty, or I could cook it and then add it in. And flake it in. The only difference being that if it's using a raw product, we want to make sure that we're using a food thermometer to check the setting of the burgers to make sure that they're cooked through. All right, so 2 cans for this to make about 4 patties. And then our aromatics. So again, whatever you want. At home, in a pinch, usually what I do is I grab like a spoonful of like Thai curry paste and I throw it in, mix it up, good to go. There's so much flavor in there already, makes it easy. But if you do want to add your own from scratch, then you can use whatever you want. I've got some scallions, and green onions, which are lovely, nice and fresh. Throw those in. Some of my favorite aromatics, ginger and garlic. We're gonna mince those in. The garlic I've already crushed in advance before I mince it. There's a reason why I did this in advance, which is one of my favorite nutrition tips of all time. If you won't mind sharing.
I will. So the garlic and also the onion in the previous recipe, once you crush it or cut it, it activates an enzyme. And this enzyme helps to develop an antioxidant. It takes 10 minutes for this antioxidant to develop. And because this enzyme is heat sensitive, you don't want to add it to if you're cooking it, you don't want to add it to heat. The antioxidant is called allicin. And we already talked about antioxidants having ALLICIN. I saw you mouthing the word. So it has some anti-inflammatory properties in it. And yeah, so we usually tell people when we're doing our classes, right now it's not going into a heat source, but it's one way of doing some pre-prep and just cutting your onions and garlic early, letting it sit for 10 minutes. So it's something I've incorporated into my practice. It takes me a while, I have to think about it, but I always feel like bonus getting my allicin.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're doing your prep, onion and garlic first, and then the rest of your stuff. So again, garlic, ginger, green onion. You can add some chilies in this if you want. You can add some spices, fresh herbs, whatever you like. I'm gonna add an egg. This is going to be our binder. Just 1 egg would be enough for this. You can add a little mustard if you want. A little Dijon actually would be really nice in here.
Now,
Egg
If
together.
you don't want to use an egg, can you use, I've heard of flax, being able to use
Flax egg.
flax egg. Have you
Yes,
heard of that?
absolutely. Has anyone heard of a flax egg before? Okay, so this is what you can use as a sub for egg if you didn't want to use egg.
Yeah.
It is 1 tablespoon of ground flax to 3 tablespoons of water. You mix it together and it mimics, and just let it sit like 5 minutes, and it will mimic the consistency of an egg white. And you can use that as a sub for egg for binding purposes. It will not have the leavening properties that egg offers for especially like baked goods. But for binding, it will work, yeah.
Great.
So,
I think there's a question.
Hi, I was thinking about the ingredients that you're using, and I remember that a common symptom or side effect of cancer treatment is loss of taste, or at least fine taste abilities. So you increase proportions of certain acidic flavors or spiciness, or in order to compensate for that.
wonderful question. Yeah, I've got some suggestions. Do you want to touch on anything first?
From a taste perspective, I think it's an excellent question, and it's so true, like probably 90% of patients will experience taste changes. There's different degrees, so there is a complete loss of taste. So something like this probably would work really well for that, like you said, enhancing the flavors, and Jeremy will tell you more about how to do that. But some people will have like an overly salty taste or an overly sweet taste, and they start complaining to their loved ones saying, did you add more salt to this? Like, what did you do? Or, and then sometimes I've had people say food tastes like cardboard or crap. So it does depend on the type of taste change. But for a complete loss of taste, I would say, yes, probably look at ways to improve the acidity, enhance the
Yeah.
spices, but I'm not the chef, so I'm.
Yeah, no, and yeah, great question. So like Daniela mentioned, it depends, and it's so different for everybody. We actually have a really good resource on if you can't taste sweet, or if you can't taste salty, or can't taste bitter, how do you counteract that? And usually it's like the opposite effect. So, or if you can't taste salty, then it's usually going with some sweet, or if you don't like salty, it's going with something sweet to counteract that. Usually loss of taste, like the most general, we would focus on ingredients that are high in what we call umami. Has anyone heard of umami before? Yeah, okay, so I love umami. I like the smile, yeah, because I love umami. Okay, so umami is essentially anything that is higher using glutamate, and what that does is it provides this sort of savoriness. You find ingredients that are usually either fermented or ingredients like animal-based ingredients usually have high in umami. Things like miso paste, tomato paste are high in umami. Aged cheeses are high in umami. Going a little heavier on those ingredients will help to really enhance savory. So for loss of taste, that's usually what we would suggest. But then depending on some of the other, there's, for some people acidity works, but for some people that maybe have mouth sores and acidity is a good idea, then you have to think of other ways to balance it out too. But great question. I guess answer, there are multiple solutions. It just depends on.
It reminded me that the distillery district has a film on umami. I
Yes.
think it's airing tonight though. It's about a chef in search of umami.
Search of umami.
From France, he's going to Japan. Yeah, anyway,
I love it.
it's raining, so it's an outdoor film, so it'll be a little difficult with the rain today, but yeah.
All right, so there's our patty mix. I like to keep it a little flakier. You can definitely run this through a food processor if you want it to be a little finer, but I like the texture with it. And then a little bit of olive oil. You don't want to have it too wet. If you find that it is too wet, then you can add breadcrumb to it to hold it together. Now, what I usually suggest with this, because I can already feel it is falling apart. After you make this mixture, put it in the fridge, let it sit for like 10-20 minutes, and it will hold together. The egg will start to act like a glue and it will hold together. Which I did for all the patties that I made that you're gonna try. But as I'm doing it live and it's failing perfectly, just to show you, it will hold together in a patty shape. And then we're gonna crust it with our sesame seed. And I'll do my best job here. Just so you get the idea. So that's pretty much what we're doing, crusting it with our sesame onto a baking sheet lined with parchment. Parchment, you will see us mention probably, or me mention anyways, about 30 times per class. So it is one of our favorite tools in terms of reducing the amount of cleanup that you have to do. So you make your patties on the pan in the oven for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just until it's nice and golden brown. You'll get some nice toastiness on the outside from the sesame seeds. And then flip it like the last like 5 minutes, okay? I'll show you quickly what they look like.
Well, Jeremy's doing that, I'll just talk a little bit about salmon. What do you hear is in salmon? Do you hear? Yeah, yes, you got it. So fattier fish like salmon and trout and mackerel are higher in omega-3 fatty acids. You hear a lot about omega-3 fatty acids and heart health, but it also can have an anti-inflammatory type effect. And with cancer being considered a chronic inflammatory condition, getting some foods that have an anti-inflammatory effect is a good idea. I mean, the research, we still have to do more research on it, but it doesn't hurt to get the omega-3 fats in. If you are not someone who eats fish, then there is a different type of omega-3 fat that you can get from plant foods. You can get it from chia seeds, from walnuts, from the ground flaxseed, or omega-3 enriched eggs. You can also get it through that.
Love it. Okay, so show you the burgers after they come out. It's so warm. This is what we're looking for. So some really nice color on the outside. That sesame is going to give you this really nice sort of texture, this crunch. And then the green onion and the aromatics inside are going to provide all the flavor to carry through. You can have it like this. You can crumble it up and make it like a taco. We're going to do burgers with it. But what I like to do, again, I'll make big batches, freeze it like this, and put it into little freezer bags, and then you can warm them up, as you need. So, put this in.
Very hungry.
So, to serve with it, we'll do a little cabbage, red cabbage, purple cabbage, love. Very simple, just shredding it. You can use a grater for this too.
And purple cabbage actually has more nutrition than your green cabbage. You've heard of us talking about eat your colorful fruits and vegetables. Do you know why we're saying have lots of color? No, just to make it pretty, rainbow. Yeah, we want it to be pretty. But what's really cool is that the color of the fruit or the vegetable is a clue to the phytonutrient it contains. And so having the purple cabbage, you're actually getting a phytonutrient known as anthocyanins. And anthocyanins are usually found in foods that are purple. So you get it with your purple cabbage, you would get it in red grapes. And so it has some anti-cancer properties. Purple cabbage is also great because it's lower in calories, but it's super high in other nutrients. And it's the most bang for your buck, they say, for getting the antioxidants that your body needs.
Love it. So purple cabbage, a little bit of acid. I went with lime juice. You can add a little bit of olive oil if you want. And that's a little pinch of salt maybe, but it makes a really nice quick slaw. You can add other ingredients. You can add carrots. You can add onion. But again, if I'm in a pinch or time crunch, this makes it super easy. And when you add the acid, the color will change from a purple to like a almost neon violet, which is gorgeous on a plate. So that's it. That's going to be one of our toppings. And then our other toppings, which I wanted to introduce, again, to highlight food safety. Can anyone guess the #1 reason why for kitchen-related injuries that send people to ER? The #1 reason. Yes.
Touching something hot,
No, that's probably a common reason. Yes.
like for knife safety.
It has to do with knife safety and for one particular ingredient. Any guess? Avocado. Avocado sends people to emerge for kitchen-related injuries more than any other reason. Has anyone cut an avocado before? Yeah, okay, you got your finger. There you go. Little anecdotal, yeah, there you go. Dangerous. Reason why is because it's very easy to become, excuse me, confident in cutting an avocado. Were you holding your hand while you were cutting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see this online, or like cooking videos, like, chefs just casually. If you're not super confident doing that, anytime you're pushing a knife towards your hand, it is very dangerous. I think commonly in the news, recently, I mean, in the last 10 years, Susan Sarandon sliced her like
Oh,
whole,
really?
yeah, her whole hand,
Oy.
like stitches. So anyways, food safety, really quick, not food safety, knife safety, really quickly with avocado. The key is really never have the blade of the knife facing your hand, which when you're cutting an avocado happens often, okay? So instead of holding it in your hand, we're gonna put it on the cutting board. We're gonna put the knife on top and our hand on top. And we're gonna push it down just until it hits the pit, okay? And then just keeping my hand on the side, I'm just gonna roll it around, just following the natural curve of the avocado, just until I get to the other side, and then twist, so open it up. Okay, that's step one. Knife out of the way. Step two, where you can cut your hand. This is a very common one, probably the most common one. You're confident, you're holding your hand, maybe someone's, having a couple libations, and you're trying to get the pit out. The sort of smack of the pit while you're holding it in your hand just looks incredibly insane. So knife are out of the way, avocado out of the way, again on the cutting board, and just give it a whack with your hand in the safe distance, okay? If you miss a couple times, it's okay, at least it's not your hand behind it, right? Once you get it once, you'll get that pit through, and then you twist, you'll pull it out. Okay, bless you. So now we have our clean avocado safe, ready to go. Step three, which again, people will slice their fingers on, removing the pit from the knife. Sometimes that pit comes out easily, sometimes it's jammed really in there. And again, you're pulling with the knife, and it can, you're very close to the blade, it can get very dangerous. So if it does get stuck on the blade, again, hand out of the way, we're gonna keep it on top and just give it a punch through the back. And then the pit is released and your fingers are all attached and we're happy. So knife safety for avocados.
And I'll add to that, I mentioned earlier that my nephew was in med school and he was doing a rotation in the Emerge. His first day, what did he have to do? Secure someone who had an avocado accident. That was on his first day.
It's more common than you think, yes. All right, so I'm gonna use a spoon just to release it. This is gonna be part of our topping. Here.
Going back a little bit to the question about loss of taste, sometimes it's so frustrating, and we do actually start to appeal to the other senses, and so making something visual appealing, like Jeremy has done with the coleslaw, and then adding some green, that can also help to it may not improve the appetite, but making it visually appealing, someone may be more likely to eat it that way. So that's something else that you can try to do if the appetite's not there. Appeal to the eye.
Grab one of these hats. I'm gonna do a bunless version.
Oh, a bunless, okay.
Okay, buns as well, just for flavor. Nice and crispy. And it's with that cabbage.
Here's the visual appeal. Jeremy's a master of
I
that.
don't know where, but then you put some avocado. Top, and again, you can just imagine this bun, dress it up with whatever other dressing you like.
And of course, if you're using a bun, what kind of bun do you think I would recommend? Fiber, whole grain, yeah, yeah. Get more fiber in that way.
Onion. And we can wrap this one up as well. Our sesame salmon burgers. Any questions? For this one?
No.
Does anyone want to try it? Maybe.
I think so. I think, I asked at the beginning of the class and they're interested in all the recipes.
All right,
And what brought them here? Food.
yes.
And I also said I was excited because this is the first time that I get to try the food too. Usually I'm at home. And he's trying to send it to me through the through the screen. Should I get started on our third
Yeah,
recipe?
absolutely, let's go.
Okay, so maple cinnamon tostones, is that how
Yes.
you say it, tostones? So this recipe fits really nicely with the recommendation to limit intake of processed foods high in fat, starches, and sugars, including fast food. Many pre-prepared dishes, snacks, bakery foods, and desserts and confectionery. Confectionery meaning candy. So yes, we need to avoid those foods. And you hear a lot of people saying, you know, sugar feeds cancer. I need to avoid all cancer. All cancer. Yes, we do want to avoid all cancer. We need to avoid all sugar. But it doesn't mean we have to remove naturally occurring sugars from the diet, like that found in fruits and whole grains and vegetables. Or we don't have to remove all fats from the diet. So fats that come from nuts and seeds, certain oils, the avocado we used in the previous recipe is totally fine and healthy. And the recommendation also doesn't mean we can't enjoy our dessert. We might just want to use it in moderation, have smaller portions. This is something actually important for people who have cancer and a low appetite. Many times we will say smaller portions. So instead of having a large meal, have a smaller meal, and then maybe introduce a snack. So having nutrient-rich snacks, that's how we refer to it. Small amounts throughout the day is a good idea if your appetite's poor. And I'll turn it over to you for this recipe.
Right, so, does anyone know what this is? Plantain, yes, plantain. So, we are making, this is, you would see in the Caribbean, very specifically in Puerto Rico, you would see these tostones. Perfect time. I'm gonna try, oh, wait a second.
You want to mute it?
Pick it up.
Yeah.
I might not pick it up. No, it blocks it. Just make sure we're not in grave danger. Fire. I think we're okay.
Did y'all get your fire safety training? Yeah.
You could save us then. Keep talking until we get a proper announcement. So plantain, tostones. You see them in Puerto Rico. Essentially what they are, fried plantain and squished into this almost like a little dial. And they're delicious. They are fried, they are deep fried. We're gonna do a baked version of it, and we're going to do, instead of a savory version of it, we're gonna do a sweet version. Okay, this is going to be our dessert. Probably get some hate mail for doing a sweet version, but anyways, so we're cutting the plantain into about 1/2 inch pieces. And we'll put them onto our baking sheet. You can do obviously a bunch. We're gonna make this quick, because look at the time, give it a minute, we'll get through it quick. Give it a little.
Red, second floor, center corridor, adjacent electrical room 476. Code red, second floor, center corridor, adjacent electrical
Yeah.
room.
All right,
Okay.
Little bit of oil,
Code red,
in the oven, 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Okay, we're gonna soften them up. So this is what we do, since we part cook them most of the way through. After you take them out. They will look like this. I've already crushed some of them, but you'll have these like a little bit of golden brown on it. And what you want to do then is take a piece of parchment and a bottle or something and flatten it out until you have like this little flattened this. And at this point, so you're gonna flatten them all out. And at this point, we're gonna add a little bit of maple syrup. Just a touch.
So you're in control, right, of the sugar that you're adding, so a little bit's okay.
A little bit of cinnamon.
And cinnamon has a way of enhancing the sweetness,
Sweetness,
so we
yeah.
don't need as much. Sugar.
And then again, top it up a little bit. Everything coated, nice and easily. Again, with this parchment, it makes it super simple, and you can just shake it out. Now they're all coated, a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of cinnamon. Back into the oven, higher heat, so 400 degrees, for about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. Keep an eye on them. We don't want them to burn. Maple syrup is a sugar. It will burn if I go too long, okay? But I want them cooked, excuse me, golden brown. And so that they're nice and crispy on the edges, and that maple syrup, you're taking it just to the point where it's gonna crisp up a little bit. And you have these awesome little flat plantains, a little bit of that maple, a little bit of that cinnamon. These are fantastic. And what I'm gonna serve it with is some cottage cheese. Cottage cheese, another fan favorite. I say that sarcastically. This was the health food I remember growing up. This
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
be the health food, right?
And I know why it's the health food, because it actually has an amazing nutrition profile, and the protein in about 1 cup, 28 grams of protein in 1 cup. Most of that protein comes from casein, so as opposed to the whey, it's the casein. Casein is more slowly absorbed, and so it promotes muscle gain and helps prevent muscle breakdown, so it's just as effective as whey protein at building protein, but it inhibits the muscle breakdown due to the slower absorption. So it's good from that perspective. We also talk to our patients, we participate in a care program where they do physical activity, mental health and cooking, and we talk about their after exercise snack. Making sure it contains protein because it helps with building muscle, and so cottage cheese becomes an easy one to just kind of have as a snack. But add it with the plantain and you're getting some fiber too.
This is, and like Danielle, like you mentioned, this is one of my favorites. I always have it with fish, or just like a nice protein kick. You need like a nice little protein kick. Cottage cheese is amazing. You like frozen blueberries on it, just kind of mix it through. Makes it really simple, really easy. So
we're bringing cottage cheese back.
bring it back. For this, I like the smooth version. Cottage cheese, if you've ever had it before, it has like curds in it. You can buy the smooth version. If you can't find it, you can even just throw it in a blender, processor, and sort of cream it up a little bit. I'm adding some vanilla to it. And that's pretty much it. Stir it through, keeping it simple.
And I like that you're just doing it in the tub.
Right in the top. Well, yeah, because we have a lot of
Saving, no, oh yeah, true, but also saving on dishwashing.
dishes,
Parchment paper, doing it in the tub, all great trick stuff.
not in the bathtub, but.
Did I say tub? Yeah, in this tub,
Tub.
yeah. It may be good for your skin too. Who knows?
Here. Beautiful. Put some on there. And then throw in some of these maple cinnamon, some is top. And let's just wrap it up. 5 minutes over, not too bad. For the first time back, there's the last recipe. There we go. I think we did it.
We did it.
We were a little anxious about having
Yeah.
an audience again.
I told them my color coding
Yeah.
means I'm anxious and
Weird.
yeah.
Red alert. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Hopefully you learned a little bit about our program, about what we do. We do have our website, ELLICSR.ca. Actually, all the info is on the front page of your recipe package. We have over like 700 recipes on there. Our YouTube channel is where we post all of our classes, all of our videotaped classes. We have a monthly class that's always streamed on there. This is it. This will be on there. And then for those watching at home, we are going to be back in person. You can come in person, sit in the kitchen, eat some food, laugh at Daniela's jokes. It is gonna be an amazing time. So starting August 3rd Thursday, which is, do we know?
Oh.
We'll get
I
back
don't
to
know
you,
the
but it's the
date.
third Thursday in
The third
August.